Now, I will freely admit that I have been quite mean to Infiniti products and Infiniti as a whole, and Acura for that matter, for the last 10 years or so, maybe even 12 in the case of some Acura products. And I'm afraid I'm not exactly quite done yet. Unlike in the past for Infiniti products, this time I'm not exactly going to be mean about the product itself. This is an all-new 2022 Infiniti QX55. Now, in fact, there are two things that bother me about this vehicle. One, very much, and the other, at this point, it's not even worth mentioning, but I will bring it up anyway. That one thing that bothers me the most is that, well, actually, I first got to see the QX55 at Infiniti's 30th anniversary bash a little over 2 years ago, closer to 2.5 years ago at this point, I think. And it was revealed to us. They showed us, the roof line and the hatch and all that, and they mentioned the letters FX. And then in the press release, sometime later, they mentioned that the QX55 is the spiritual successor, something like that, to the Infiniti FX. No, it is not. The Infiniti FX was novel, innovative, sexy, excellent, incredible in all kinds of ways, from design to performance. The QX55 is just a rebodied QX50, which isn't a rear-wheel drive setup like the FX was. It's front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive. Anyhow, it's a very, very different beast, so that's wrong. But that's essentially it, really, because everything else about the QX55, much like the QX50, is just about spot on. Now, just before we do the walk around and the drive, just some observations. In my neck of the woods, I have only ever seen one other QX55 since it arrived on the road, I think in late spring of 2021, right around there. Whereas a colleague of mine at Motor Illustrated says that they are everywhere. Perhaps that has more to do with the median household income of where I live versus where he lives. It's possible. Not because this is expensive, because this is actually reasonably affordable, or what you get for the money. There's value in it. Anyhow, what I'm saying is that I think it should be a better seller because of what it is, but maybe the competition is just too fierce. Anyhow, it is time for that walk around, and then some wheel time. Now, styling certainly isn't that other element that bothers me about the QX55. Truth be told, I think it actually looks really good. It's very trendy, the style as it is right now, and I mean the long wheelbase, short overhangs. It looks very, very contemporary. How about that? It looks good, period. Just to give you an idea, size-wise, compared to the QX50, this thing's about 5.5 centimeters lower, or overall height is lower, and it's a little over 3 centimeters longer. So essentially, they do share the exact same footprint. It's a good-looking SUV with maybe one weird thing: the taillights. They're comically almost oversized. At night, there's so much light from those LEDs. It's completely out of step with the overall size of the vehicle. But otherwise, it's still a really, really good looking crossover, SUV, whatever you want to call it. All right, so pricing for the base Lux in the US. $46,500. In Canada, $51,995. For that price, you get these 20-inch wheels, not bad. Remote start, wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, LED lights, a heated steering wheel, and a twin screen setup in the dashboard, 8 inches on top, 7 inches on the bottom. I'll show that to you in a moment. And at the other end of the spectrum is the Sensory, the model you're looking at right now, which is priced $57,050 in the US, $60,998 in Canada. For that money, you get Pro Pilot Suite, the complete collection of all the driving aids, semi-autonomous stuff available from Nissan: heads-up display, semi-aniline leather, cooled front seats, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I think it looks good. I kind of like Nissan's front end. Nissan, woo! But Infiniti, same difference. We understand each other, right? Okay, so it's open trunk, power hatch. Obviously, you can expect this price point. Excuse me. So that reveals 762 liters of trunk space, which is very accessible. Surprisingly, I mean, it's very deep, and height-wise, there's very little lost when it comes to the angle of the hatch. And there's actually some decent storage under the floor too. This was a nice surprise, to be honest. Good stuff. Okay, well, on the inside, this is a smaller-ish, not quite compact SUV, so it's a little bit snug back here, but imagine the baby seats are gone and you're sitting down as an adult. That's where my driving position positions the seats. So there's a decent amount of leg room. 3 adults across might be a little bit snug, to be quite honest, but overall, it's pretty good. Okay, so Infiniti. Look, they do beautiful interiors. I mean, the contrast stitching. There are so many layers of material. Everything comes together really nicely. And some components are a little bit older than what maybe we would expect in a vehicle from the 2022 model here, but overall, it's nice. Beautiful leather, contrasting colors too, that match really well with the exterior shade. Let's jump in. Start her up. So, okay. The twin screen setup, we'll just get right into it. So 8 inches on top, 7 on the bottom. It's fine. It is well integrated. I love how it's flat on top of the dashboard, but honestly, I mean, the graphics are getting old. Same thing with the interface here. We had this in QX and Q50s years and years ago, but it's still quite functional. I mean, everything about it is okay. We got the audio, the home button, your climate controls, like any other system or all of the modern systems. I mean, you have to give it a few moments to boot up when you start it when it's cold. There isn't really anything negative to say here. I mean, some functions are a little bit weird, like you have to select between going into park or shutting off the vehicle to auto unlock doors, and you can't have both. Anyway, silly little details like that. Lovely gauges, digital readout in the middle. You can see my average fuel consumption at the moment. Visibility is not too bad, actually, given that the dash is kind of low and my seating position is always at the lowest setting. A little bit of a spot there, but it's very workable. You can kind of see, yeah, you can't see the heads-up display. Storage is a little bit on the tight side. I mean, this bin is very useful. This can fill up quickly. Over here, I mean, I guess it works out nicely. The door bins are decent as well, but the overall impression in here is very, very classy. Beautiful materials, fit and finish, craftsmanship. I mean, look at the 2 surfaces coming together beautifully. I mean, this is what Infiniti is essentially trying to sell you, is that this is a hyper-premium vehicle, especially on the inside. On the drive, actually, it's pretty damn close as well, I have to say. So let's do that now. So what is that other element that somewhat bothers me about the QX? It wasn't even close. The Pro Pilot and these driving assists. Anyway, well, it's the CVT, but quite frankly, honestly, realistically speaking, it's one of the absolute best in the business right now. The only reason why you know it's a CVT and you recognize how it functions is when you take off from a dead stop and you're accelerating gently, the engine speeds will fluctuate as you continue to accelerate. But beyond that, look, there are programmed gears, you have paddle shifters, and, well, I won't say the saving grace because they kind of complement each other really, really well, is the variable compression turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine up front. It is incredibly potent. This thing is surprisingly quick. I don't remember feeling this way about the QX50 when I drove it almost 2 years ago at this point. But it really, really moves. I mean, I've been driving in standard drive mode the whole time. I haven't really played around with the other drive modes. I mean, the toggle's just right behind the shifter. There's Eco and then there's Sport, but honestly, standard has been doing an incredible job of just getting things moving. And it's a combination of the gearing of the CVT, the boost and the power of the 2-liter. It's throttle response is incredibly, it's immediate, but not harsh or sharp. It is, I mean, even with the start-stop system engaged, it works so well. I'm not at a loss for words, clearly, but I am truly impressed with how it works. I mean, the 2-liter variable compression engine, what it does is that it'll vary compression in the engine to, I think, as low as 8.6 to 1 up to 14 and change or so. What does that mean? That means is it'll give you a little bit more torque, or it'll give you more efficiency, and vary continuously between the two, depending on the amount of load or throttle input. The result is 268 horsepower at 5,600 RPM and 280 pound-feet of torque between 16 and 4,800 RPM, which means that at any given time, I am absolutely enjoying this powertrain. I mean, except for the drone at first. I mean, the CVT shifts wonderfully from one gear to the other, unless you're thrashing the throttle. Otherwise, it glides. It's just so super smooth, and the ride quality is surprising as well. I mean, it's got a rear multi-link suspension setup, obviously independent in the front, and the ride quality is good. I mean, the roads around my hood are always broken, but not even close. Anyhow, what was I saying? The ride quality is really nice. It might be, 51% dynamic, 49% comfort overall, 20-inch with the, narrow sidewall tires. Give it a little bit more of a, well, you can feel all the sharpness in the surface of the road, or nearly. But critically, it's not jarring inside. It's very comfortable, refined even. Steering is, and I noticed this in a number of Infiniti products over the last 5-6 years, it is devoid of feedback. There's a chasm between what I'm doing with the wheel and what the front wheels are doing. I mean, the responsiveness is good, it reacts well to steering inputs, but I feel like there's a brick wall between me and the wheels. The brakes feel great. What else can I say? Oh, intelligent four-wheel drive, intelligent all-wheel drive from Infiniti. So essentially, you get a 50-50 split in normal or hard loads. 50 is the maximum amount of power that will be sent to the rear wheels, and you can get all of 100% of the engine's power to go to the front wheels, which is one of the main reasons why this is not the FX's spiritual successor, or whatever the exact words Infiniti used to describe the QX55. This is essentially a front-wheel drive with rear-wheel assist, like most all-wheel drive systems. But beyond that, I mean, this thing is great. But and the pricing is interesting to see it. I happen to be right by a new Q3, and see, there's the toss-up: Q5, Q3. X4, X3, maybe even X2, Lexus NX. I mean, the list of options in this price point, in this segment: GLC, GLB, GLA, and I'm skipping over a whole bunch of other ones. I mean, in my opinion, the reason why there are very few on my side, or in my hood compared to my buddy's hood, is that, well, around here, there are BMW and Audi people all over the place. A lot of Lexus, obviously, but BMW and Audi absolutely own everything here, with a number of Benzes as well. And for the brand itself, Infiniti still, and never will, be able to really compete, go toe-to-toe with the German brands. But that doesn't take anything away from how good and interesting this product is. I mean, I think maybe if it had a real transmission, like they've just done for the Pathfinder, which I thoroughly enjoyed, by the way, in good part thanks to the 9-speed automatic transmission, maybe this one would have a chance. But then again, I mean, the Q50 has No chance against the 3 Series, the A4, and the C-Class and all that. So probably has more to do with this. But then when I got mean with the brand, well, that's because they went from being this to being that. Anyhow, that's it. I like this thing.